Hi everyone, Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game of all time, and with less than 2 weeks to wait for the new remake of the game, thought it might be a fun idea to do a retrospective analysis series of each chapter of the game. At least that's the plan as of right now. This is something I've been wanting to talk about for many months, but I didn't feel like I was totally qualified to do any deep digging until I could physically play the game. For those watching in the future, Square actually released a gameplay demo of 7 Remake a couple weeks before its release. So I'll be analyzing the content in this demo, which is the entirety of Chapter 1, which is the first mako reactor run. I'll mostly be talking about the story, presentation, themes, and characters, although I may dabble a bit in the field of gameplay as well. With all that said, enough idle chatter, let's mosey. The intro of the original Final Fantasy VII is iconic, and before they dropped the demo, I really wondered how Square could top it. It just did an excellent job introducing the player to the slums of Midgar and giving an exact tone that carries throughout the entirety of the game. Somehow, though, Nomura and his team have managed to top it. This time, the camera starts high up as it slowly moves down to Aerith. The reveal of her is somewhat slow, and when we can fully see her face, her eyes are completely closed, which is a stark contrast to the original game in which Aerith's eyes were wide open. I could draw some conclusions about what this means early on. Of course, the most obvious reason is her eventual passing. But considering her posture and what we see in the next scene, it becomes clear that she isn't in the alleyway for no reason. She's on the run from a very real threat. The ghosts that seem to follow her around and the voices she hears within her own head because she is the last Cetra. This is confirmed when she looks down the alleyway clearly stressed and the player sees nothing, but the chorus of One Winged Angel starts to subtly play to confirm that something in that deep, dark alleyway is pressuring her. She bumps into some nameless dude and staggers a bit. This seems to establish the types of people that live underneath Midgar's plate, and they aren't friendly and they can be very dangerous. Further depicting this, as she's on the streets picking up her flowers, someone carelessly steps on them, further showing Midgar is a dark place with people who don't care. Everyone's out for themselves in this unsafe and unsanitary environment. The camera recedes further and further back, giving us a good shot of the entirety of Midgar. It is graphically beautiful, and it does a great job depicting the literal caste system that is the foundation of Midgar's structure. The poor and less fortunate live under a plate that blocks them from the sunlight, with the mako reactors that aid the rich being in plain sight. Although they obviously don't gain the perks of it and live in a mako polluted underground city, while the rich live above this plate basking in the perks of mako energy, and of course, the Shinra corporate building is right on the top, showing that they have power over all of this. The viewer is greeted with a title card as it swoops down to meet Cloud on a train. Much like in the original game, the first view we get of him shows him quite confident and ready to get the job done. Overall, the intro isn't changed much from the original game, and I think that's okay. It expands upon it in fulfilling and interesting ways, which I think is most important here. After this, we get the same scene we got in the original Final Fantasy VII, in which Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse dispatch two soldier guards guarding the mako reactor. And then after that, we are soon greeted with Barrett Wallace, one of the main characters in the game, and yeah, you're going to be seeing this guy a lot. He waves Cloud down, calling him Merc, and Cloud swoops down in a very confident fashion, showing the viewer his mako-infused eyes. Now in the next couple interactions, there isn't much analysis in terms of story. Mostly the game uses this opportunity to teach you simple gameplay mechanics, although I will say I do really enjoy the combat in this game. It feels just mashy enough and just tactical enough to be fun. I know some players really don't like action RPGs, and that's fine, but I respect Nomura's choice to do something new here, and I like his vision. I believe it wholeheartedly pays off. Cloud feels great to control, and there's this weird sense of wildness to his swings that I really like. I feel like both his default run and his fast run speeds are perfect too. Now moving on to a bit more of the story. You walk in on Avalanche's squad having a bit of small talk, and this is when the writing in the game really jumped out to me. It really just feels so natural, especially in contrast to its source material, which unfortunately had a very poor localization. Jessie is really the star of the show here. She gives some pretty subtle exposition and banter with Biggs, and I like that you are free to move around as they have their conversation. We also finally see Cloud speak, explaining that he has no plans of staying with Avalanche after this gig. I suppose now is a better time than any to discuss the voice acting in 7 Remake. It's really good, and the voice direction and localization is clearly top notch this time around. I love the energy that Big and Jesse both have in their dialogue, and their voice actors do an amazing job really bringing these characters to life, especially considering they weren't really in the spotlight in the original. Wedge talks a bit less than both of them and delivers a somewhat cringy line to Cloud about him being a true believer, but I hope he gets fleshed out more in the final game too. Barrett's voice is perfect. It's rough, it's hardened, and it gives off this aggressive and excitable energy that Barrett totally needs. Perfect casting in my eyes. Cloud Strife is my favorite character of all time, and I will say, while I believe his current voice actor does a great job, I can't help but wonder what Steve Burton, the original voice actor, would sound like in this role. In Advent Children and Kingdom Hearts, he always delivered his lines with a sort of nonchalantness, I guess you could call it. It's kind of hard to peg, but the thing with Cloud is sometimes he acts like a character that doesn't care, but he really does. He acts hard, but he's really soft. I don't know if Cloud's current voice actor will be able to pull that side of him off just yet, but I have high hopes, and he does do a great job with the material he's given. Anyways, they all move on into the reactor. Biggs busts a hole in a gate. Cloud engages in some more combat, this time involving a dog. And everyone but Biggs and Wedge infiltrate the reactor. Afterward, we are shown another scene with Barrett, and this scene does a great job depicting how unsure he is of Cloud's loyalties. He pushes this further with a scene later on referring to his relationship with Tifa, but for now just comments on his previous occupation, being soldier. Then we get one of the first scenes of Cloud clearly showing some kind of mental weakness. He nervously holds his head as Barrett yells at him, and I think that this is a really good way to show that all the cogs in the gears of Cloud's own memories aren't quite working. This is obviously an important seed to plant for the future, but on the topic of Cloud's emotional range, Nomura stated in an interview that he wanted Cloud in 7 Remake to feel like he's essentially cool most of the time, but not without his moments of abrupt awkwardness. I think this scene does a good job depicting this side of Cloud. It serves as a couple different meanings even this early on in the story, and I'm glad they're putting such a huge focus on Cloud's memories and psyche at this point. Anyway, Cloud is briefly separated from the party, gives an amazing resting bitch face, and fights off some guards. Pretty par for the course stuff here. The party gets back in the room, and Jessie openly flirts with Cloud. Now I gotta say, I love how the script is embracing this side of her so early on, and Barrett immediately disapproving of her is quite funny too. I also like how Jessie provides the reason she's able to hack into mako reactor doors, citing that someone in command gives her passwords. This is a detail I'm pretty sure is left out of the original game, but it also gives the player a better sense of the kind of group Avalanche is. They aren't hacking any Shinra computers at all. Jessie's just using passwords. I honestly find it kind of amusing. Before jumping into the elevator, Jessie asks Cloud about his relationship with Tifa, and Cloud once again mentally stutters. The static effect on the screen really helps to push that something is off about him. The game decides now is the best time to show the players the villains as well, and while this scene doesn't particularly show anything interesting, it's serviceable at what it does, and it does show the threat that Shinra poses. Next, we get Barrett's grand speech about why you are here shutting down this mako reactor to begin with, going out on a tangent I can never do justice with my own words. However, Cloud responds clearly showing he thinks Barrett is a madman, and I love the discourse that takes place between the two. I can't wait to see more of this discourse as the game goes on. And after this, we are introduced to Barrett's ability in a unique way, which is through a cutscene. Then, undermining this cool visual storytelling, we get a screen that shows us exactly how to use Barrett's long-range attacks right before we use him. I know that this is a demo, and this probably won't be in the final version of the game, but I just thought this was a little strange. After this, we get a long stretch of mostly gameplay and banter between Barrett and Cloud. You go deeper and deeper into the reactor, and there is a small section where Cloud and Barrett have to run past lasers that hurt them if they run into them. A simple concept, and this section is fine. I feel like if they keep rehashing this idea in other reactors, it could get old really fast though. Barrett and Cloud take down a sweeper, pretty normal stuff. However, the conversation that Cloud and Barrett have afterward, in which Barrett equates the soldiers' rank to their age, is interesting and admittedly very amusing.
The 20s.
The hell you talking about? I mean your age, not your goddamn rank. So for all I know, a soldier's rank could be the same as his age. Guess that make you a 1-year-old, huh? Live and learn.
Now we find ourselves at the core of the reactor, and I love the shot that introduces us to this area. It slowly pans downward to where you'll eventually plant the bomb. There's not much to analyze on the climb down. There's more combat against new enemies you've never fought before and a lot of crates to smash. Once you get down there, Barrett hands you the bomb. In Barrett's eyes, not only will setting the bomb prove your loyalty to his cause, but also prove to him that Tifa's positive view of you isn't false. Cloud says he doesn't care to detonate it and he wants to get paid, but ends up doing it anyway. Then we get another scene where Cloud clenches his head, but this time we see a small black feather drop right next to him. I love the look on Cloud's face here. He's obviously dealing with some kind of trauma, of course from his past. Also, just a small detail, but I love how depending on what time you set on the bomb, Barrett has a different reaction to both, and they're both negative reactions. This makes sense at this point in the story. He's still not the biggest fan of Cloud. Now we have the Scorpion mech boss fight, and while I don't want to go too much into the details of gameplay, this boss is really freaking good. The different phases all have distinct attacks, and the idea of hiding behind cover to avoid the tail laser is really cool. I really hope that the other boss battles in the game resemble this kind of template, and looking at what we've seen so far, it certainly seems like that is the case. Also, the banter between Barrett and Cloud is amazing too. You could tell they are somewhat warming up to each other despite the rocky start. Anyways, you defeat the boss, the bomb is detonated, and now it's time to escape the reactor. Another small detail in Remake that I really like is that you're separated from Barrett as you climb up the reactor and are forced to do so with Jesse. It's cool small details like this that make Remake feel really fresh to me. It's the same game, but everything is heavily expanded upon and fleshed out. Not to mention, the back and forth that Jesse and Cloud have as they haphazardly go back up the reactor is golden.
Come this way! This route should lead us straight to Barrett. Probably.
In terms of story and cutscenes, this is pretty much the last of Chapter 1. You retraverse through all the areas you already did, but with a timer over your head. This does provide a false sense of tension, even if the amount of time is obnoxiously large. You also end up running into the shock trooper enemy, and this thing looks so accurate to the actual game. Not gonna lie, it's small things like this that make me really excited to play 7 Remake. You apparently barely escape the reactor as the bomb goes off, but unlike the original game, it is shown to have no effect at all. However, Heidegger blows up the reactor by President Shinra's request anyway. I'm unsure what exactly the story change will accomplish for the rest of the game. Maybe they're trying to frame Avalanche even further, but this seems very extreme. I guess we'll just have to wait for the full game to see how this affects the story at large. After that, we jump back to the elevator where Barrett and Cloud are, and it seems that they're reacting to the explosion they thought they caused. Barrett honestly seems kind of stressed about it, almost like he didn't expect for that to be the outcome. If this was the intention by the developer, I think it shows the softer side of him pretty well. We get to rescue Jessie once more, and I still love the way she flirts with Cloud. There isn't much here to break down thematically, but we do get an awesome scene of Cloud barely escaping death by jumping on fallen pieces of the reactor.
Cloud! Okay, that was pretty cool. Alright, come on.
Now we get a view of people under the plate watching destruction in the reactor. This was done well in the original too, but with the better cinematography and graphics here, it really feels like you're witnessing a terrifying act of terrorism. I love how the mako itself speeds up into the air as the reactor goes down. It's a cool detail that goes a long way. After that, we get a bird's eye view of the reactor's destruction as we see lights from those on the upper plate go out. This makes sense as mako works as electricity. And with that heavy imagery, Chapter 1 comes to an end. Overall, I had a lot more to say about this chapter than I honestly thought I would, but I think that speaks volumes about how high quality 7 Remake has been so far. It really is a large improvement over the original game presentation-wise, and seeing all these smaller details fleshed out is really awesome. It seems that Nomura and his team are making it a top priority to recreate Midgar as the unforgettable place it is, and I cannot wait to witness the rest of this world building in the actual game when it launches. Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out on April 10th, 2020. And with all that said, thanks for watching my first part of this analysis of Final Fantasy VII Remake. I really hope to do more analysis of this game when the game comes out and when more chapters are revealed. And if this demo is any indication, I think we're going to be receiving a very high quality product.